who knew keeping the internet safe meant leaving your XM and Jira servers vulnerable?
Hey Manny, I understand you're looking at a story about some sort of malware that's spreading around, exploiting Jira and XM?
Yeah, so, like typical, I've done, thousands probably of stories on these types of, malware infections that are part of botnets. This one is your typical sort of Monero cryptocurrency malware. This one obviously Linux-based. When it first came out, it was going after some vulnerabilities in the Apache Solr, which is, I believe, some sort of Lucene-based query, right? It was also going after Jenkins and ThinkPHP.
Okay. So they're finding a lot of these web-based application software packages and finding vulnerabilities for them and using them, or using ones that are just announced.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay.
And so as part of this Watchbog botnet, as part of the payload that they're dropping, obviously the end goal is to run cryptocurrency on these servers, right? So the end goal for this thing has always been, and seems to, at least so far, still be cryptocurrency in the end. This particular new variant, so that was back in January, and as we've always seen with these things, they tend to migrate and they change into new variants. So this new variant that has just sort of emerged, which is still using the Watchbog framework, is now going after Jira, which is this issue tracking software.
Very popular.
Right, very, very popular.
Package, right.
And then XM, which is the mail transport.
Right. And we talked about that vulnerability probably within the past month or something on the show, if I remember right,
Yep. So it's a pretty big universe of servers out there that are exposed. In this particular case, it was kind of the story about what the creators of this particular variant thought about the actual malware that they were deploying. When you're infected with it, there is a text file that comes along with it. So there's some information that they are providing as part of the info that they want to send out to their compromised users,
the victims.
Right? So they're sending them a message about like, hey, this is what we're all about, right? So I wanted to kind of have this up here, right? So if you look at it, it's like, so the goal of the campaign is to keep the internet safe, right? So they're making it so that it's like, we're keeping you safe, don't worry about this, right?
Right.
And they're keeping the real hackers from causing real damage to organizations. We know you feel we are a potential threat. Well, we ain't, right? So they're trying to alleviate your, concerns, right? That they're a big threat to you.
They're the good guys.
And they're teaching you, right?
That being said, we want to show you how tiny vulnerabilities could lead to total disaster.
Exactly, right.
So don't worry, but I want to let you know that this could be a disaster for you. I find it amusing.
So they go on to here. I love the one that says, "Please, we plead to everyone out there, don't sabotage this campaign. We want to keep the internet safe," right? So they're basically telling you, just let this campaign go on, because in essence, we're doing good out there. And then you got to love this. Sometimes you got to break the rules to make them. So again, this is what kind of I felt like was interesting about this, was this message that they're sending, like, hey, we're doing something good for you, right? We're showing you that there's a vulnerability that you really do need to patch, but don't worry. All we're doing is just making a little bit of money off of you.
I don't think this will hold up in a court of law if they're caught doing this, but you shouldn't be doing that, using other people's resources or entering other people's systems without permission. Doesn't make it right just because you put a disclaimer in there saying that we promise not to do any harm.
If you're running one of these servers, what typically stops you from updating them, patching them, right? Is it that you have some applications running and it might break the application? Is that why? they're worried about just patch, not, it takes them a long time to patch these servers whenever there's a vulnerability that gets.
Yeah, I would think that's. I mean, part of the reason you see that is depending on what other things are running on the server. Sometimes having downtime, maintenance time to do pushes of patches delays the process, and some of them are, people stand these things up, and it's like stand up and forget, like they just don't.
Right.
So I think there's a variety of reasons why, you would find, 1.6 million of these vulnerable servers out there.
And I would, there's probably some scenarios, I don't know about Jira because I'm not super familiar with that, but certainly a lot of these content management systems where you have a lot of third-party plugins that you might use and be really dependent on for part of your presentation or whatever you're doing with your particular website, where going forward to the next version might break some of those plugins. Like they might not be forward compatible for some weird reason. They should be, but and that might stop you from upgrading because it might break something as a dependency that you've either as a plugin or maybe something you've done yourself that you've coded in to modify the original intent of the code. But like you said, I think more often than not, it's probably just lack of good patching processes on the user's behalf, like the site owner's behalf.
Yep.
Usually.
Yeah.
Again, making sure your system's patched, making sure it's not available to the internet if it doesn't need to be accessible through the internet. Those are the types of things, typical things that people seem to forget about or aren't aware of.